It's very rare that I see you in the afternoon.
And that's a good point.
Yeah, we usually do that in the morning.
That is a good point.
So thank you for making the... Oh, and I'm seeing your new background. I mean, it's similar, but it's in the new place.
Yeah. Wait, is this really the first time we've...
Yeah. I mean, last time, that was end of August, and you were about to move, I think. And so it's been a month, basically. We are the 28th of September, so I already say it, so I don't forget it.
Wow.
You're super crisp, by the way. I want to say, your camera, you're like, I can see your pores. I can see like
That's not good. See, I've had to like smash out a couple of videos for work, and
I've seen one actually. Yeah.
Now that you're further back, you can see the absolute mayhem that is my office. But I had to like bring it in really carefully, and then Greg had to like clip out all of the flotsam and jetsam that was in my office. So here we are getting there. So,
do you still see me? And did you hear me?
I can see you. No, I can't see you.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot see myself. I'm blocked on a. Hold on, maybe it's coming back. No, don't move.
That was weird.
No, am I back? No, I'm still.
I have a
face of me.
thoughtful portrait of you.
Yeah, I know. Hold on, I'm trying to go.
There
back.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My software just. Yeah, I'm on a different. This is not usually how we record this, guys. I mean, on my side, because I'm the layout for recording as well, which is very different from so I'm not using the webcam, I'm using the camera and everything. So actually, the reason I'm looking at the side, Alex, is that I cannot fully see you on the teleprompter. I had a speech this morning that left it that way, and then...
Oh, yeah, yeah. And about 3 minutes before we started recording, I realized that I had my whole setup still in filming mode, and I was just scrambling to put it all back together.
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened to me as well. But yeah, congrats. I like your... I don't see your horn. I'm disappointed.
No, my horn is awaiting repairs.
What happened? Did it move?
Yeah, so it's a simple thing. I fixed it once before, but yeah.
But hold on. Is the background a virtual background?
No, it's real.
Oh, yeah, because on the video that I'd seen, guys, they must be like, what are we talking about? Alex's background felt last week when I saw... Was it? No, actually, it wasn't you. Attaché, how do I pack? How do I... So that was a very cool video, by the way, guys. Watch it. It felt that the background was closer, so it could just be the lens you chose.
That's right. I was much closer, and there was some lighting. I got some very good feedback from you, actually, and several others on Twitter about that. But yeah, no, you're right. Astute observation.
It's just like, yeah, I'm not on the highest resolution. So thank God you cannot see my pores actually on my end, because I'm just not doing that on HDMI. Anyway, people do not let me just play the usual.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yes, good luck. I mean, we're living in a crazy world, man. I don't know what's going on. It's been a month and it's been like 10 years at the same time. I don't know. Yeah. Just, yeah. The only thing I'm realizing is the prices of flights from the UK are increasing like every minute.
They are,
because obviously the pound is crashing against the dollar, and the dollar actually is increasing against everything. I mean, the Japan yen is crashing even more, and the euro is relatively crashing as well. And my video disappeared again. I'm sorry, I don't know what the hell is happening. Never mind, we're going to continue like this. Oh, I'm reappearing. Something is going on. But as it's a podcast, you don't need a video. I mean. So yeah, and I've seen the prices of flights, man. I mean, they're denominated in dollars. I guess that's why. But I'm monitoring some prices for the future, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? It cannot just be because people are booking. It's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't looked in the last 72 hours and you're thinking, what the hell are they talking about? Go look. I dare you.
Yeah, exactly. Especially living in the UK. I mean, you guys who are in the US, you have now the strongest currency in the world, probably. So everywhere else is cheap. I'm hearing actually a lot of friends that are going to Japan to make some deals because, you know, the Japan yen fell like 30% in a year against the dollar. So suddenly your dollar goes much farther when you are in Japan. And since Japan is reopening on the 11th of October, yeehaw! Mm-hmm. I'm hearing a lot of friends going for shopping, actually. I'm saying, are you not going for food? No, we're going for shopping. Oh, okay.
Oh, can you imagine Yodobashi right now?
I bought a camera like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, I should have gone now. If I had known, I would have waited, and I would have gone out, and my camera disappears again. So I'm not going to mention that every time it does it. I just don't know why it does. So Alex sees me like in bursts. But again, we're not doing live streams. Although we had a lot of people asking, we should put that on YouTube. It's not going to be this one then, because I'm disappearing every 5 seconds. I'm going to figure that one before we do any type of video. You traveled. Actually, let me play the music, the small Can I's music. So you said last time you were not traveling, but you had to, and you went to the US.
Yep, I did briefly to California for work. So that was good. Flew on Virgin Atlantic for the first time in that direction in years. Got to go to that lounge for the first time in years.
Oh, the club house?
The Heathrow, nice. Where I used to live when I worked for them, and actually for years after that, while I had status. But it's still a great lounge. Great.
You don't have status anymore with them, right?
Well, I do. I did the thing that I think you did it as well, where we matched.
Status match, yeah.
Yeah. And that's really the only perk you get. But
now basically that means we're going to be status matched on SkyTeam, I guess.
That was big news yesterday.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's so they officially joining SkyTeam. It felt for a long time like, why don't you join SkyTeam? You're kind of already with Delta, and so now it's official. So we are finally an airline in the UK, which is part of SkyTeam. I'm no longer really on SkyTeam. I'm the lowest, but I mean that I guess we don't have the conditions yet. But I guess that in January they say it's gonna be the case. It's gonna start. We might be automatically gold, whatever the name is, on SkyTeam because we are gold with a status match. I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be. We talked about this when I flew on Delta out of LA, like this so confusing with Virgin's relationship with Delta and therefore SkyTeam, what you get, what you don't get, blah, 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 blah. So hopefully this will make it slightly better. Because I want to like Delta.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, and now I'm gonna get all the hate mails because we have a lot of Delta fans listening to us. Obviously, it's the best airline in the world. But yeah, I think the advantage of the integration, besides of course the points and everything, is probably better even interlining. So schedule adjustments. Which, by the way, there's another US airline that was on the news for that is Emirates with United.
Yeah, that kind of. I didn't see that coming.
No, exactly.
Because they had the Emirates had that long agreement with JetBlue, which didn't really actually seem to do a whole lot. I think did you take advantage of it at some point? With
the one time I flew JetBlue to the US last year, I actually enrolled on JetBlue's program, which I forgot. But I should have, in retrospect, having flown only one time in November 2021 was probably stupid to not have used that for Emirates points instead of having points that I will now probably lose and a status that will probably lose. But yeah, I'm being still gold for how long I don't know on Emirates. You threw me in the arms of United, really?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense, but for both carriers. But from a passenger experience perspective, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to work. I can't imagine I'm going to take advantage of it. It's not made for people like you and me, sitting in the middle.
Yeah, but it's also made, and my camera is still frozen. Last time I mentioned it, so I'm sorry, mate. You're going to see me frozen for a while, and then it's going to start over again. And I cannot put back the webcam because the webcam is on a vertical mode, so you'd see me all vertical because the screen is vertical. So I cannot. I'm so really sorry. It makes sense probably for people in the US because then you'll have better scheduling when you fly towards Dubai than elsewhere. That's the advantage of such integrations. You don't have to wait 7 hours, or the plane will actually wait for you because it's the same booking, stuff like that.
You can definitely see the advantages.
Yeah. So maybe because I'm going to do Pakistan this time.
I cannot wait for this. I've been waiting for ages to hear about this.
And we've gotten so much messages as always, but a lot of people are like, Paul, really? You haven't done it for like years? Do it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this time. But because I'm going to speak for probably like a 40 to 60 minutes by myself, and I'm going to try to be as interactive as I can, I want to start with giving Alex something to say. So tell us, how was that flight to I mean, you said, was it San Francisco you went to, or?
Yeah, San Francisco. And so Virgin have 2 flights a day now to San Francisco. The amount of frequency to between London and San Francisco has crept up quietly, but it's I think like 7 or 8 flights a day now between everybody that runs that route. Yeah, it was good. I haven't been through T3 in ages. Especially through the Virgin Wing and all of the little secret upper class door that you can go through, which is just private security, which is rather nice. But yeah, it's that lounge is. I see that Skytrax, those pay for awards that everybody loves to toot their own horn about. They came out yesterday and they named that as the best business class lounge in the world. Now I can think of 6 or 7 off the top of my head that are better than that lounge, but it is a very good lounge, and the food and drink were as good as I remember. I mean, you've been there. You've experienced.
Yeah, but only once actually to the club lounge. It was when I flew to St. Lucia with Virgin. Actually, it was my first time.
It's a very.
It was packed.
It was packed. I mean, it was pretty busy that afternoon flight, and it's a beautifully designed lounge. It's multi-level, which I think just adds so much to a room like that, as opposed to the sort of. I mean, I'm not picking on BA here. I'm just comparing it to the sort of flat aircraft hangar layout that some of the BA lounges are. And the food was excellent. The service was unbelievable. Just, I think the 4 or 5 people that I interacted with were so kind and proactive and just Virgin. I've forgotten what that was like. And
do you mean, was it still, because when I went, it was, of course, we were talking about, when was it, April? So it was still kind of, COVID-ish, whatever. So there was a service at the table. Is it still service at the table, or is that optional? You can simply go to the...
A little bit of both, but mainly service at the table. So you scan the QR code like we've all been conditioned to do now, and they bring you these wonderful treats. But they also have this semi-self-service deli area where you point at what you want and they serve it for you. And that, again, like,
oh, cool.
Super nice, really good quality stuff and very, very friendly people. So I think, Virgin are a great option. And I've given up on the idea of retaining any of my statuses on any carrier because I'm just not traveling as much. And
I agree.
I'm spreading it across all of these different carriers, so it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm the same. As soon as all these very nice offers that extended us forever during the pandemic lapse, I think I'm going to lose pretty much everything, and I just don't care anymore.
I don't either. I think it's been nice to experience some new airlines. I know that BA do a soft landing to Silver. I would be great if Virgin did. I don't know what it gets you, but it's. I don't really care, and it's allowed me to experience a lot more airlines and do a little bit of comparison shopping. And they were cheaper than BA. And actually, Greg and I both did this auction upgrade thing.
Oh, yeah.
Plus grade, yeah. And because he got me onto it. I've used them before. I think I used them on Etihad once, and it worked well.
Yeah, I've done that as well. Yeah.
He mentioned it, and I had a look, and like the prices were like insanely cheap to get to premium economy. And we've talked about premium economy quite a lot lately, and that it represents pretty decent value. And we both snagged an upgrade to premium economy. So that is a small cabin. The Virgin Atlantic premium economy is pretty good. It's a big comfy seat, small cabin. The food was good. It wasn't as rancid as I was bracing myself for. And that's not a reflection of Virgin. That's just a reflection of the current state of airline food at the moment. But to be completely fair, the service was no better than BA. It was a little bit rushed and not as personable as I was hoping for from Virgin.
I mean, there's a bit of a reset probably after the pandemic service. We cannot really evaluate from what the experience were before, maybe.
And I can't, because it's been so long since I've flown on Virgin that I can't remember what it used to be like. But also, I had my PACX dork hat on and my customer experience dork hat on throughout the flight going, now, what's going on here? Why is this happening? Is it because there has been an influx of inexperienced cabin crew post-pandemic because everyone's trying to rehire?
Yeah.
Probably. That you don't have those, that legacy sense of brand built into a generation of cabin crew who have all dispersed. I think that's probably the most obvious reason for it, and that's fine. And on the way back, Greg and I were like, oh, let's do plus grade again. Let's see what happens. And I couldn't, and then I couldn't check in, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, and he's like, no, I submitted my bid. And then I asked him, I think 48 hours, because that's when we knew last time we had been successful. He said, no, I didn't get it. I'm like, man, I can't even check in or anything like that. And then finally I could check in, and I had been upgraded to upper class.
What?
Somehow. That's the second time that's happened in 3 flights with Virgin Atlantic.
Do you think it's because your Virgin hat? Do you think it's because that plus grade didn't go through and they say, oops, we need to fix that? Or?
No, I think I couldn't plus grade because they had operationally upgraded me beforehand. I think the flight was too full in economy and premium, and they just shunted me up because I had status. That's what I thought, and it broke basically the plus grade integration.
Wow! I would have loved having that because I status match for gold, so I think it's gold, yeah. And I was in premium economy, as you remember, and I was like, oh, could they not upgrade me? I've never been upgraded. Of course, I never flew, but yeah.
There
were other people probably in front of me.
A very dim memory in the back of my brain. Maybe my dad told me this or somebody, that their Virgin especially were far more likely to upgrade you from economy to upper than they were from premium to upper, because they were going to make more money out of the passengers in premium, and the premium was always full and blah, 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 blah. There's more seats in upper than there are in premium. Yeah. And I think that I got lucky.
Good for you.
And
Was it the coffin? Sorry to call that coffin.
Yeah, the one that Air New Zealand has, not the new suites that they've unveiled.
Yeah, exactly. So you're very low on the ground when you're asleep. Yeah,
which is strange for a couple of reasons. I mean, it was actually weird going back into the San Francisco Virgin Lounge because I used to love that place, but they have outsourced all of their lounge management, at least in the entire U.S., if not network wide, to Plaza Premium.
Oh.
And that lounge used to be...
It's a hit and miss.
It is very hit and miss. That lounge used to feel like the lounge of a W hotel. It was well designed, well lit, cool, very kind of stylish, very smooth. Now it felt a little bit like a porta-cabin. And lots of temporary desks and noise, and it wasn't nearly as good.
But does that mean that lounge now is open for anyone who has some kind of Plaza Premium access, or is it still... Yes. Oh, I see.
Yeah, Delta flights that go... I don't think there's many, if any, Delta flights that go out of the international terminal, but if you have Priority Pass, maybe, certainly Dragon Pass or Dragon Card or whatever that one is called, you could get in there. But so that was a little bit disappointing, but your observations about upper class are spot on. Compared to the previous generation, which was the OG, which had the much higher walls, and you felt like really like private. Yes, it was a little bit claustrophobic. When you're all sitting up ready for takeoff, you look like a field of meerkats. It looks quietly ridiculous with everybody's head, but they're not expecting you to stay fully upright for the whole flight, and you sink down. And it's a nice, comfortable seat. A lot of the touches still remain.
There's the bar as well, right?
The bar. I put some pictures on Instagram because the lighting.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, of course you did.
And the design is still very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's the one I saw to St. Lucia. I mean, I didn't get access to, but I saw it. It's pretty nice. Do people actually sit there?
No.
Yeah.
In the olden days, they did. I remember you would want to avoid sitting near the bar on a red eye because it was always noisy. But no one sat there. They just, half the time the cabin crew were doing their paperwork on it. They put out snacks on it as well. But no, maybe it would be different doing a day flight. But this was a night flight.
Yeah, to be honest, besides Emirates, which has their bar on the back of the 380, all the type of these lounges / bars / socializing places, I've seen that on Thai Airways, in first class. I've seen that on, of course, Qatar or something, on some of their 350s or whatever. And I've seen that like many other airlines. I'm not going to list them all right now. It feels like the only one where people are actually going and staying for a while is Emirates. All the rest are like almost for show. People do not go. I mean, they might go there for a drink, but there's not like a staff present at all times. Only Emirates does that, which probably is why people kind of feel like they can go like as if it's in a bar or whatever.
I think you also need the volume of seats as well that Emirates have to justify it. But it does. I mean, it looks cool, but that's about it. Other than that, I think the the IFE is very good. The food was outstanding. The service was really, really, really good. Kind and friendly and chatty without being annoying. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a very nice change of pace from BA. And again, that's not a slight on BA. It was just,
no, of course,
I've gotten so used to all cabin service levels of BA that I'd forgotten what else was available out there.
It's funny when you said earlier that you would. So we were both agreeing on the fact that we would not defend our status at all costs, or actually just accept that the fact that we might just lose them, is that you said that you will shop around, and I've actually almost realized that I'm doing the opposite because I'm flying less and I'm not looking to fly more, at least for the moment being. Also, especially because the crisis is coming and I'm almost in winter mode a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of less elective flights. I tend to basically gravitate around those that I know and trust and love, which is obviously Qatar to go to Asia, Emirates. I haven't been to the US in a year. I mean, probably there I will hesitate between BA and maybe Virgin if I still have status by then, or JetBlue. But other than that, the era of me going, I'm going to try Air and whatever. I don't think I'm going to do that a lot anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Sorry, guys, by the way, because you're hearing that like maybe that was one of the attractions of this show for us to go through strange airlines. But I don't think that it's going to happen that much in the future. I don't know.
I mean, for now, to be completely frank, price is the number one driver for me.
Clearly. Same.
It's going to have to be, and so I will. That's why I picked Virgin. That was the deal breaker. It wasn't because I could try a new airline. But it's funny you mentioned Qatar, because if you go on the BA forum on Flyer Talk, people go on there and they rant about BA. And there are a lot of BA apologists on there, and they're usually pretty right.
Of course,
in what they say. But somebody posted about a bad business class experience going to or from Doha
with BA or with
BA, and everybody, all the BA apologists were like, "What are you doing? Why the hell would you fly BA on a route that Qatar serves? What's wrong with you?"
Interestingly, they just furthered their commitment to each other because they have like not merged. They had went on an 11 playing field with their frequent flyer program. So IAVs are now transferable very easily in either direction, like in a click, basically. So you still two different programs, but they've announced, what they called it, joint in business or something like that. Like they're new. Basically, they're enhancing Doha as a hub, including for BA. So there'll be more flights, including on BA metal, towards Doha to go anywhere else, and you already are able to find Qatar flights on BA's website and the reverse. But they said that they will go even further in the collaboration. It's not like a single airline, but it more and more resembles as if it's like two airlines cohabiting with each other to a certain extent, obviously, and which actually furthers your point. I mean, if that's the case, I'm even more likely to fly Qatar than BA because I'm like, unless I really want to avoid a layover to go to Japan, maybe I'll choose BA. But with the quality, and I'll tell the story of flying Qatar twice this year to Pakistan a bit later. I mean, why would I? And it's not a shade on BA.
No, it's not. It's not. It's just they are a different league.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, and so you enjoyed your flight. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be the Cliff Notes version. It was good, and I look forward to trying them again.
and how was San Francisco? Where are you, San Francisco? You said how
San
was
Francisco, yeah, just San Francisco. That's a complicated city these days on so many levels.
Yeah, well, that we know. Yeah. Let's not go. But yeah, I'm still envious. I haven't been to California in forever, and yeah, I'm still missing it. No matter some of the stuff I'm hearing about San Francisco or even LA or Portland, I actually would like to go back eventually. Yeah. So yes, it's to your point about being price sensitive. Even though it was about flying a new airline when I was flying with JetBlue, it was a price that made me take JetBlue. I think if I were still because a year ago I was still like, no, I need to kind of protect my status. So I would have otherwise chosen obviously PA and perhaps Emirates flying from Athens or Milan, but no, it was the price. It was just like the introductory price, I think, or something. So it was, I'm going to be more price sensitive going forwards. Saying that, the Emirates flights I bought last few weeks ago to my next destination, which won't be revealed. I mean, you know where I'm going, was eye-wateringly expensive.
Yeah.
And you know what? I realized because I was going on Expert Flyer, and guys, probably going to be the next episode in a month. It was not due to the final destination. It was due to the fact that pretty much every single flight from Emirates, from London to Dubai, are full. Like you go on Expert Flyer, and I was attempting like a few dates, like plus minus 4 or 5. Everything was full. Economy, some of them in premium economy, the flights will have it, and the only flights that had a little bit more room in were the flights from Stansted, so the 777s. But Stansted is 2.5 hours away. I mean, I don't want to do 2.5 hours to be 3 hours in advance to fly then 7 hours.
Yeah.
It feels like. But I mean, I would consider it maybe if the price was really that much lower. But it was that bit that was super expensive, not the second part of the flight. And it's eye-watering. So it's both the dollar, but simply the fact that people are booking, which is, I mean, I guess good news for the industry that people are flying.
And you can see why Emirates are so keen for Heathrow to sort their lives out so they can add more capacity. Because what is that? I guess from London alone, if you include Stansted and Gatwick, they've got to be pushing 12 flights a day.
14 flights,
14.
Yeah, I would say. Maybe daily? I'm not sure. I'm saying that this just came out of my ass.
You know what? I don't think you're far off.
Because there's so many from Gatwick and Heathrow, plus at least 2 from Stansted. And then I mean, of course, there's Manchester and Birmingham. I mean, this is
Newcastle.
They're all full. I mean, they're really and they're expensive. As in, if you compare, I mean, my destination had limited options, but if you compare with other, like Qatar is probably better pricing ish, depending on where you want to go. No, it's just like they're just very successful, and there's not enough capacity. I think Heathrow. I mean, you just mentioned you were being at Heathrow. The experience at Heathrow was okay, I guess, right? It was not what it was during the summer when it was like chaos.
No, it was all pretty easy. I mean, T3 is. Yeah, I mean, they were going to burn the thing to the ground anyway, but that's all been pushed back.
Yeah.
It's tired and clunky, but you know what? It was fine. It was fine. The place I'm excited to get back to the most in that entire terminal is the Cathay Lounge, and I cannot figure out if that's going to ever happen again. But yeah,
I think I've heard it's open.
Yeah, it's open
from time to time, but you need to fly. So you need to, I guess. Can you go in there without flying to Hong Kong?
Yeah, any One World.
Yeah,
flight. So it would be Finnair. Oh wait, no, Finnair have moved to T2, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. So there's like
Qantas, and then BA.
Yeah, but BA doesn't really fly long haul from T3.
No,
so
but you could do, if you're doing Vegas, and a few others. Yeah. But yeah, it's harder and harder to get into what is just a truly wonderful lounge.
Yes, I've seen it a few times when I was flying Emirates, because there's also T3. Of course, I couldn't get into, but I saw it and I miss it. I mean, Hong Kong is. I mean, people are saying Hong Kong is open. No, it's not, but it is ish compared to. Of course, they did the same week as Japan did. Japan basically October 11th. We said at the top of the show. we're back to pre-COVID. Besides, you need to have not 2 but 3 shots. So it's like boosters included. Not boosters, not yet. I don't know. Included. So that's 3 shots, or you do a PCR. So that's still something. I mean, it's one of the only countries, if not the only country I've heard that is asking for 3 shots. Yeah. But otherwise, it's open. So visa-free is coming back and everything. And Hong Kong announced the same week, maybe the day before, their new policy or the day after, I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, you were looking at it and you told me like there's like a test a day or something. Was a bit, you can go into restaurants.
Go anywhere for 3 days. I mean, there's no hotel quarantine anymore, which is great. But that's like saying you're not getting punched in the face anymore. Great. But you can't go into restaurants or shops or anything. In fact, it was funny. I was talking to some parents at my son's school this morning who were part of the tranche of people that took those special visas that the UK issued and got held out. Yeah. And we talk about Hong Kong a lot. And I said, "Hey, are you guys gonna plan a trip back now that they?" And before I could even finish, they just laughed in my face. And they're like, "No, why would we do that? We can't go into restaurants. We can't go anywhere. What's the freaking point?" I mean, they were a lot more elegant than that. But yeah, it's. I'm not going back until it's.
You send me the rules. I think, like you said, 3 days self-monitoring, which means you have to do a test by yourself, I guess, for 3 days. But and during that time, you cannot enter any premises, so no restaurants.
Yeah, you have to do a PCR at the airport and a rapid test, and then you've got all these movement restrictions, and then there's a test every single day for 7 days.
For 7 days, yeah. The 3 first days you cannot enter it, but you have to do these tests, and then you further have to keep doing these tests, even though you're allowed to go into places. So it's not for a short trip, and even for a longer one, it's painful. Yeah. And what happens if you're positive? Are you putting?
You will go into one of those detention centers.
That's the risk, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, I'm not.
That's the. I mean, we know that now the likelihood. I mean, probably we're going to get some kind of wave because it's winter. But I mean, it's not. That's the issue. It's like having these type of. I think Taiwan also has. Maybe I'm mistaken. I remember that laughably a friend of mine who lives there said, "Oh yeah, now the new rule is that when you arrive in Taiwan, they do not clean your luggage anymore because they're not afraid of the luggage carrying COVID." I was like, "Oh wow, great!" She still had to do the quarantine. I think that's eased up, but not to the point of the full opening or whatever. What can I tell you? And anyway, you know what? There's no capacity to these cities in Asia yet. You could see the effect when Japan announced the opening. Was it last week? Immediately people started booking, obviously, because a lot of people were like, "I really want to go," myself included. I'm not booking, by the way.
No,
the price has exploded, but parts of it is because there's no capacity. So BA had already planned to reintroduce flights in November, but that's a month after the reopening. So you can see that there's just capacity constraints. I mean, airlines will obviously add capacity very quickly, but probably not as quickly as people want, so that the prices are calming down because it's very, very expensive.
And of course, you've got the added complication of not being able to overfly Russia, which is adding 2.5 to sometimes even 3 hours to the flight.
For directs. Yeah,
and so you can see where airlines are like, you know what? No.
Whereas but if you fly with a layover in the Middle East, that's fine because you're avoiding anyway. But I mean, it's still a long flight. But it's if you go to Qatar or Emirates, obviously. I thought, obviously, when I heard the news, I think this time, usually I'm the first to learn, but I think I was in a meeting and Matt Drinkwater told me, "Hey, 11th of October." I'm like, "Oh, wow." And I toyed with the idea for like, of course, 30 seconds. I immediately went like, "I have all these miles. Should I? And I'm like, "Yeah, no, what? I'm not going there yet." It's not that I don't want to. It's like, first, I don't really have a reason besides holidays and, I need to work. And I'm not sure yet about wanting to be in a place when you have to still mask outside. I mean, this is not a shade about masking because I understand, and I was very much in favor of this before, but with the current situation, is it still, I don't know. It just, when my friends tell me you can go into an izakaya and drink yourself to death without a mask and then you have to go outside and remove it, I'm like, and put it back on. I'm like, what?
I'm with you. I just keep thinking like, Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. Probably early 2023. I'll see. Or maybe by next month when we record next, I'll say, I'm already booked.
You're right. Yeah.
I doubt it. I mean, I have to fight with myself. Like, I'm like, should I? And and my friends, of course, they all send me, Paul, should we organize a party on October 11th? Like there was Chris and Shin and all, I mean, some of them.
Yeah.
And they're like, Paul, should we organize something on the 11th evening? I'm like, no, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish. But you know what? That's the other thing about the change of pace between now and before is probably less also like impulsive flying than I used to.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there's a lot less of that. I mean, it's not economically viable anymore.
No, exactly. That's the other thing. And I don't want to talk negative or like being too negative, but I think we haven't seen the start of the crisis yet. No. I mean, the winter will be tough, especially in Europe because of the energy crisis. Doesn't mean that it will impact maybe us directly. I mean, it will impact because we have to pay the bills, right? Obviously. But, when the economy slows down, it means that, of course, consulting gigs slows down, speaking gigs slows down, everything slows down. So for me, I'm like, this is what I said earlier, winter mode for me. I'm not going to go in hiding or something.
No, that sounds pretty sweet. I would do it if I was you.
Yes, yeah. I'm just going to spend my money more sparingly. Maybe I'm very Swiss when I do that, right? The same way I acted just in February 2020. I'm like, where is that going? I'm not sure. So it's not now I'm going to, buy, stuff with like there's no tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that includes travel. I'm not saying that I'm not going to travel because I don't want also to put off all our listeners saying, they're not going to travel anymore. I'm going to stop listening. So no, we're going to travel. I'm going to a very cool destination first time next month. So, but yeah, it's just that it feels like between everything getting expensive, between the potential recession, even though it's maybe, I don't know. We don't know. Basically, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm not making any financial decision. I just want to be careful.
Yeah, I think it's who knows how long this lasts, but if history has taught us anything, it's not going to be over next week. So,
especially with the government we're having here.
It's
you just close these up. I mean, you still cannot see me because my software to reroute the camera feed has stopped working. So you're seeing a big black square, but I can see his expressions. And when I said government, his face changed immensely.
It's yes.
Yeah, well, what can I tell? What can I tell you? So. Yeah, no, we are going to travel. Don't worry, there's going to be a lot of stories. Plus, there's a few backstories I want to still tell at some point. But we don't want to be downers. I hope that all of you travel a lot and enjoy that. And please report back. It's not economically viable to travel as I did in 2018, 2019. That's for sure for me, at least for the moment. Let's put it that way.
Same.
Yeah, right. Look, should I go to Pakistan? Maybe I will. So, yeah, I know. I'm going to try to pull you in.
I wasn't going to let you get away with not doing it. I had thought about this in the hours leading up to this recording. Like he needs to. I want to hear this.
Yeah, and actually I've got like messages, including I remember one from Mathieu Guyonet-Dulic who told me, are you never going to talk about your flights anymore? Because it's true that in the last 3 episodes, I think last one was you. I haven't really talked about any of my flights because I don't know why. And of course, the issue is that then he piles on and then I have suddenly like 3 flights to explain for Pakistan in one go. I'll try to make it as short as I can, also as interesting as I can. I mean, first of all, trying to talk about Pakistan, there's 2 things I want to mention. The first thing is obviously now it's a month. The news cycles goes very quickly, but there's been massive floodings in Pakistan. They started actually every time I went, and you'll see, every time I went to Pakistan, something crazy happened. This time was the flooding, but we're just starting actually. More than 30 million people were affected in a way or another. So, I mean, if you have the means, we just said there's a crisis. If you have the means and maybe the heart, and there's many organizations can donate too, obviously. I want to say that because I have friends included that have been suffering. Maybe indirectly, they include simply brownouts, lack of electricity and stuff. It's not fun. So I wanted to put that out there before I go further. The other, maybe that's a question actually. Let's put your mind to 5 years ago before I went the first time. Would you ever thought of going to Pakistan yourself?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, definitely.
Because for me, it was not. So I'm not saying I would not go to Pakistan, because I probably will go to any place in the world. First of all, my philosophy in life is to say yes, or just go to places. But it was not on any list. I don't have a list.
Oh yeah,
Probably
I mean,
don't.
from that
You know what I mean?
perspective, no, I think you're right. I thought you were asking, would I have said absolutely not to Pakistan?
No.
Well,
I know you.
but-
No,
oh,
you're not like that.
no. I mean, to answer your question honestly, then no. I think I'm the same. I don't. It wasn't on a bucket list. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It is one of these countries as well, and that reminds me of my experience moving to the Philippines. Now it's been more than a decade. You know, when I toyed with the idea of moving to the Philippines, it's one of these countries, and Pakistan and the Philippines for me in my head is the same, what I didn't know anything about, but to the point I couldn't even picturize, is that a word, how it looked like. Because, when you talk, France, you think the Eiffel Tower. The US, you think about, I don't know, maybe in San Francisco, the piers, and in New York, the Empire State Building. And I mean, there are cliches, but you think about something, you have a picture in your mind about how a place will look, and then obviously you discover it. The Philippines, Manila, nothing. And the same with Pakistan. I have nothing. Like, I didn't know what it looked like. So that was probably also one of the reasons why it was not on any kind of list. It was like maybe one day, but that's it. And I was so it's 2017, November 2017, I'm in a conference in Paris called Hello Tomorrow. I know that's the tagline for the ex-tagline from Emirates, but nothing to do with that. It's a deep tech conference, whatever. I was speaking and hosting. And after 2 days, that's when I almost broke my foot. And I was like, I was in the ER on the end of day one. Because I ran out some stairs and arrived limping on stage, and I was limping the whole afternoon and all day too. Anyway, I probably said that in a podcast at some point. And the end of day two, I'm outside. I'm having a smoke. Yeah, I used to be a smoker. I still smoke occasionally. And there's these guys next to me, and I don't remember the exact context. Maybe they asked me for a cigarette or for a lighter or whatever. That's the only thing. The only good thing about smoking is that you end up in these kind of groups that, completely random. And I'm like, where are you from? And Wakas, I'm going to say, because he became one of my best friends, says, yeah, I'm from Pakistan. And I said, oh, I would like to go. That's the first thing I did. And he looked at me and said, really? I said, yeah, why not? Yeah, of course. Really? You would love to come? I said, yeah, I have no idea what the country, but you seem cool, like cool people, because they were interacting. That was after like maybe 5 minutes of interacting with them. And to make a story short, a few months later, got an email. You're invited to keynote speech at the biggest actually startup conference in Karachi, November 2018. I was like, wow. He actually not only said cool. That, but he actually, that was really cool. I was really, really happy. I'm going to explain the visa because that actually builds on the story that we'll tell later. At that moment, it was very simple. I had no idea how to do it. Swiss passport holder living in the UK. They just sent me a paper with a stamp. I mean, of course, it was an electronic copy. And that said, we invite you and kind of please do everything to give this person a visa on arrival, business visa on arrival. And that was it. That was the only thing I had to do. I showed up to, it was T4 with Etihad. I was flying Etihad. I remember I told you that story back then.
Oh,
that
yeah.
When they wouldn't let me in.
I remember that.
The Sabre computer wouldn't find me probably like a Swiss passport with that paper resident in the UK.
Classic computer says no situation.
Yeah. And I could see it. I can remember because I was speaking with my eyes to see what the computer says, and like literally couldn't process what it was. And then they called the manager. Anyway, I was let in. That flight was the 380. I'm not going to say the flight. I think I've already done it anyway, and it's too long. Etihad is not what it used to be. Mm-hmm. I remember that's when they had the what was it? The new lounge in T4. Maybe that doesn't exist. The house, which is the lounge of Etihad and other leading airlines or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, that's just an apartheid.
I forgot about that.
And it was the Emirates studio, the Etihad studio, which I had done the year previous on a Dreamliner to Australia. It was really nice. Anyway, the flight doesn't matter. I land in middle of the night. I think it was a 320. So it wasn't, smaller Etihad, but it was super nice service, 2 in business class. And so they had paid me. The reason I chose Etihad is not that I didn't choose it. They paid for it.
Oh, I see.
And they told me, that's important. They told me, you'll have someone waiting for you at immigration, which, cool. which also kind of tells you maybe immigration is complicated. But obviously, I had this piece of paper, which I had printed out. Thank God, by the way, I had printed out in color because the stamp was in color. So anyway, I arrive. We land middle of the night. I had learned from one of the flight attendants there was no ILS. So I think it was broken because I doubt that an airport like Karachi, which handles for a city of 25 million people, doesn't have an ILS. But anyway, no ILS. So I'm putting the scene because Karachi airport is something out of a movie. And I say that I need to say that to all my friends from Pakistan because I know they will be listening. I mean, first of all, I'm under your control. Please send us feedback, send me feedback if I say something is wrong. But I say a lot of what I'm going to say is with a lot of love. So we land, we taxi. One thing, and that remained the case, very hard to get network. So obviously you're like, okay, I don't have WhatsApp. I cannot contact anyone. I'm like, whatever. I'm like you. We're used to flying in weird places or unknown places. I'm not going to call it weird. That's unfair. And I arrived. So this airport it's middle of the night, like 3 a.m. I think. I can't remember. Very dark. I cannot see anything. And there's a lot of humidity as well. So the windows are all opaque. I cannot see it. So the door opens. I'm pretty much in the front. So it's fine. I'm going. I start and I walk normally. I just follow, exit. And then suddenly I can see people starting overtaking me. Like they're going pretty fast. I'm like, what should I do now? And you're like, are two minds. Should I go fast? But also, I'm a foreigner, so there's probably a different queue for me. Everybody else, basically, in the flight is a local. I don't know what to do, but I'm like, you're accelerating. You're going midway. I'm like, I'm not maybe going to run, but I'm going to go fast. And I'm tall, so I'm going a little bit faster. There's the very narrow stairs for some reason, and you arrive in this immigration hall, and that's the weirdest immigration hall ever, because usually. If I tell you immigration hall, and it's the same for all of you guys listening, you imagine you arrive at a place and you see like a row of different booths in front of you, and you have to choose a right line for you. That's pretty much it. The room in front of you, there's nothing besides the exit, and the booths are on the sides, like little islands. So you could just cross directly to luggage. Of course, there's a barrier and there's someone checking, but you need to basically go to your proper island, which is for you, which it makes, in terms of dynamics of people walking, makes no sense because, and you cannot see what is the latest island, what is written on it. And by the way, the other thing was nothing was written. And I'm like, and I know that someone is supposed to wait for me, but suddenly it's chaos around me. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And I'm looking, maybe a bit stupidly. I'm like, is there another foreigner? Because if the other foreigner does something, I might just choose to say, no, I'm the only one. And I'm like, God. Wow. And then, of course, all the economy is like rushing in. And I'm like, oh my, what? So, and I just pick up a random queue, and it's chaos. People are pushing, overtaking, people are saying, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? At that point, I remember Edge appears on my phone. I'm like, oh my God.
Edge.
God. Yeah, Edge, exactly. I could do a WhatsApp. So I send a WhatsApp to the guys that were supposed to wait for me from the conference. I say, I'm here. I'm not sure. They said, oh, Paul, finally. The guy says he's not finding you. In my head, I'm like, I'm the only foreigner, and I'm like 5 meters tall. Anyway, I go back. I say, okay, I'm going off the queue. And I find him. He's seated next to the stairs. I missed it. Never mind. And from then on, I'm the super VIP. I'm like a royal. The guy not only leads me to across the chaos, but to a private room which was built inside that, it's like a almost temporary thing. And that this woman with a lot of medals and, like a seems very official from the immigration. She seems very, very kindly nice. She looks at the paper, takes my passport, stamps the paper, writes some stuff down. I have the visa, so there's an actual, sticker in my passport, cool. Another stamp. I mean, the guy goes with me to the luggage. I didn't have any luggage because it was carry-on only. So, and then leaves me to the exit. And my friends, I mean, they were not friends at that time, but they became friends, welcomed me, and they took me out to the hotel. And so that was my first experience. And I was like, wow, that changed everything. I was like a truly VIP. I felt almost like a minister or some, going. I was like, wow, like I had my private, Anyway, it was really amazing. So I was able to escape the chaos. Very interesting feature of Karachi Airport, when you exit, there's actually no door. You're actually outside, almost like you are in a Hawaii or something. You know what I mean? Like there's no like doors. You belch out directly outside as soon as you get out, and there's like lots of people, like millions of people waiting for their relatives or friends, including my friends, and that was it. So that was my first experience. I'm not going to talk about Karachi now. I'm going to talk about my second experience because to compare. So this time, I did my speech and everything. 2019, I get invited again by a different organization. They said, Paul, we saw your speech. It was amazing. Could you come and do that? And I say yes. And that was supposed to happen in April 2020. We all know what happened. Then they said, we said, okay, next year, let's see. April 2021, you remember that was the time when we started getting the vaccines and everything. And I was like, the rules are so complicated. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So this time I refused. I said, you know what? And they said, oh, you could do it online. And I said, you know what? I really want to go. One of my incentives to do this speech for you is because I want to be in Pakistan. Yeah. So I basically told, I'm sorry, I'd rather not do the online and wait for another year or two until we can go. Then then we arrive in 2022. On the end of February 2022, Pakistan changed their rules. You can enter the country if you're vaccinated without any test whatsoever. I'm like, yeah, I can finally go. Was important. One thing that was important because you just mentioned that about Hong Kong. Until that point, because they told me, yeah, it's fine, you can come. Until that point, if you were having COVID in Pakistan, you were put also like in a center.
Right.
And I was like, I do not trust the center. Not that I do not trust the medical system. I do not trust the location where I'm going to be put in for 14 days. I was like, no way, I'm not taking the risk. And of course, simply taking the risk of being stuck. I need to work. I cannot just stay like at least in Dubai, because when I went in February 2022 in Dubai, when the rule was still applying, if you were to have COVID, they would actually put you also in the center, but the center was a 5-star hotel. So that would have sucked, but at least I knew what to expect because they had, they requisitioned a few 5-star hotels in Dubai. In Karachi, and I'm sorry guys, my Pakistani friends, I'm not trusting the system. And the worst was, there was an exit COVID test. I was like, I'm leaving anyway, so you're not going to do me a test preclude you from leaving. So that's why I said no. But then end of February, changed rules. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. This time the conference is in May. I book Qatar Airways. That was very weird. Qatar Airways was at T5 at that point.
There was that period.
Yeah. So the good thing was that I had access to, of course, the first wing and access to the first class lounge, which was my first time coming back there after the pandemic. I was super happy. It was like going back to places we used to hang out in 2019 and so on. There were still, the weird kind of plexiglass windows between each seat in the first class lounge at PIA, which made like no sense whatsoever. But anyway. And that was a very weird experience because you could see that clearly there was no Qatar experience at T5 because it was a Terminal 5C, and Terminal 5C was basically closed. None of the shops, including the Boots and there's another Pret, I think, maybe, whatever, nothing was open. And once you arrive there, as you know, it's kind of hard to come back. You can walk back, so I waited until an hour before the flight, but there was nothing, nothing. And there was really none of the usual Qatar tries to, tell what the experience was. So it was a very, very bizarre place. The other thing that was bizarre, obviously, was that at that point, we started to say, oh, no more masks anywhere, but Qatar Airways, you still had to wear one. And they were so I had one, and as you know, like you, we never had an issue wearing a mask in a flight, so whatever. But it was just noticeable. Flight was really nice. I remember that during the flight, it was a Q suite. During the flight, they were, and I believe that was because of the mask policy. They kind of knew probably that some people in business class will remove their mask or forget to put them back on. They didn't really want to be rude to passengers that would do that. So they were basically closing all the doors by default.
Oh, interesting.
So
what kind of plane was it?
I think it was a 777. It was pretty sure it was a 777. I have some notes here, which I'll go now to check. It was a 777. But because usually they didn't do that. They were really like pushing the doors. And maybe I'm cynical, but I'm like, you know what? They don't want to know if someone removes their mask. So the door is closed. Do whatever. It's not our problem. All the staff, all the crew had masks. They were actually really, really great. It was really, really fantastic, right? The flight was lovely. Arrive at Doha. I know that some people don't like. I mean, you've seen the pictures. I know you've never been to Doha. This big yellow bear that sits in the middle of the I know some people hate it or some people criticize. You know what? It works. Yeah. I was so happy to see it. I was like, I'm back.
Seoul Incheon has something similar too, and it's neat to see that.
It's like, at least it's unique, and you know that you're there. You know what? There's no other. You're not in a random airport. It's that, and I was so happy. And I at first, I remember for the first time I saw it years ago, and I was like, what were they thinking with this big yellow bear in the middle of? And actually, I love it. I think maybe I was too emotional being back. I don't know, and I was like too. But it's nice. Then second flight, that was to Karachi. I think I don't have my notes in front of me. It might have been a 350. I think. Very cool as well. Also the doors and everything. So same situation. Nothing special to report about that flight. And then, so we landed in Karachi. So this time, I have all this in my mind. I was like, okay, it's going to be a very different experience. So, visa again. In 2019, they introduced an e-visa, which is great, on paper especially. You're like, this, you go on a website, you fill all your details, everything is actually logged. It's going to be more, I don't know, orderly, I guess. So I had to do that. Trust me, it takes a long effing while to do it. Because there's one question which says, can you tell us all the destinations you've been in the last 3 years? I was happy that the last 3 years were because it was mid-2022. It was only mid-2019 because it took me an hour to fill, because you have to put the date of arrival, date of departure, reason of travel, destination, country. And every line you do that and add. And I didn't want to lie. So I put everything. I said, okay, fine, whatever, nothing to hide. But this time, you print out a paper and you just have to choose, and that's depending on your business, the person, the company, the organization who invites you. You have to put the reason, and you have to choose a type of visa. So different types of visa. There's, for you and me, there's a visa called Other, which is conferences, basically, events. So I fill that out, and I have this paper. But the thing is, knowing from the experience I had the first time how was Karachi, I tell this organization that invited me, say, do you have someone waiting for me? Like very innocently, And they're like, oh, let us take a look, whatever. And then say, okay, you'll have somebody waiting for you. Oh, yeah. So I'm relieved. Like I don't have to run, and I don't have to go through the nightmare of finding which queue it is, especially because we might have changed because it's a different type of paper. And the good thing this time is that this even sent me a picture of the face of the person who was waiting for me. So I'm like, oh, great. So I can actually recognize him amongst all the people when I arrive. Similar situation, the door opens, people start to run. This time I run. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be one of the first one in this crazy immigration hall, which hasn't changed, still the same. This airport dates from 1947, and you can feel that, right? It's like everything is kind of beige and brown, and it feels like a bit
a government building.
Oppressive is not the right word, but you know what I mean. It feels like smaller than it actually is because of the colors. And I arrive and I see the guy. And so this time it's easy. I'm like, oh yeah, he's over there. I go, yeah, I'm Paul. Oh yeah. So, and because that's the thing, I follow him, and there's no private room or whatever this time. Fine, whatever. Just follow him. He's an immigration officer. He starts to shout across to some other guy who is doing the stamps. We basically overtake an entire queue of people, Pakistanis. He goes in front of them without even asking, just puts my passport in front of the guy, just said, stamp, stamp, stamp. I guess that's what he said. The guy is like abandoning everything he's doing. There's people still pushing, there's three people there's supposed to be one line. There's three people all fighting to talk to the guy to get their stamps. He overtakes I'm just behind him, like, oh my God, or whatever. And then at that point, it dawns on me. and that's the thing I want. It's a bit delicate, but I don't know how to talk about. Didn't know how to talk about. I was like, this is not standard procedure. This is somebody who's fast tracking you in so many situations that I've lived in other emerging country, which kind of means, do I giving something?
Oh God, I would not have known what to do in that situation.
I felt the first time, probably, maybe it was a different, I'm not going to put the omen on the first time because I would never know. Maybe the first time was different. Maybe it was a very different situation. Maybe I was on some kind of VIP track. I don't know. The second time I feel, you know what? I'm like in the Philippines. I remember, because that was my other really long emerging country living memories. You can pay your way to anything. You can fast track yourself to security, fast track yourself to exit, to enter, everything. And I'm like, shit. And I'm going to do a parenthesis about, I don't know, how do you feel about that? I don't want to put the omen on you, but how do you feel about, in general, about these type of situations?
I think that it's
weird. Huh?
I think it is weird. I would not know what to have done in that situation because it's very, very delicate, isn't it? I mean, you could end up in jail.
Exactly. It's very. I don't know, I'm Swiss, so I was born in a country where I'm not going to say corruption doesn't exist, probably exists everywhere, but corruption is not a thing. You assume that everybody does things with good intentions. You don't think about these things, right? Of course, the experience of living in the Philippines, and I'm not pointing the Philippines in a special way just because I live there, you realize, in other situations that, stuff you do, you can... But I think there's a different... And it's horrible because I have really a hard... I don't want to feel like people think that I'm a proponent of corruption because I'm not. But, there's one thing if, like, you're getting fast-tracked to a security. It's another thing if it's an immigration official, right?
A government.
Not that I would... Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm not here saying you should do either. I'm just saying... Once I was there, it was too late because the guys had already done all this and was basically overtaking everybody, like shouting at probably was a superior, by the way, because it was probably shouting and it was like, you put this stamp, and it was done like in 30 seconds. So in my head, in 30 seconds, like, what do? I know he's going to walk me to the exit, to the luggage carousels. I need to make a decision. And the decision, I was like, you know what? I took a bill, I had pounds, and I shook his hand. It was he was super happy. So, I probably took the right decision, but I was not happy to have done so. So sorry, now I'm going to have the Pakistani police tell me that I did like corruption. But that's why I was really hesitant to talk about it. But I think it's something that's some of you might experience.
So was it the guy that stamped or the guy that escorted you?
No, the guy that escorted me. Because the guy basically that fast-tracked me. And maybe I would have got away with not doing, but I felt that was I said, maybe again, I'm wrong and I'm sorry and I shouldn't have maybe done it. But by the time I realized, I'm like, and and it's nothing to do with the organizers. Maybe when they understood that Paul, this guy that they have never met, just saw on stage, was asking for somebody to help an immigration, say, oh, yet another of these guys that just wants to just go faster and, he knows what to do. I don't know. I haven't asked them either. I don't want to put the omen on anybody. I just think it's a very weird decision. I have this story. I'm going to make a parenthesis about corruption in the Philippines. I remember I had a driver, and although I don't like cars, I like to drive time to time. And during the weekends, I would suddenly take the car and drive it myself. In Manila, and I had tinted glasses, so nobody could see me. But I will always clearly remember I was at a Japanese restaurant in central Manila, Makati, called Sirena. I think it still exists. They have a secret menu for Japanese only because they were, maybe that's not the case anymore. They were importing directly from Tsukiji market. So I went there, had food. And then on the way back, not 10 seconds, I was in the car, had like this police, like on a moped, putting the blue light, stopping me and saying, oh, you did a red light. And I was like, there's no red light anywhere. And then I realized that probably either he or the guard of the parking in front of these restaurants saw me, like foreigner, entering the car and said he's an easy target. And the guy was like, showed me like a paper which had a sum on it. It didn't feel like anything official, and they said otherwise you come to the police station. And what do you do? So here again, I'm not here saying there's a good solution. Either you go to the police station, you can stay for 8 hours.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, right. Or you pay $1, which is what he's asking in a way that supposedly is official. And I don't know what to do. And so, meaning I'm very tortured about this. It's not something that I easily just like, here's a pile of cash to people. It's not something in my nature. So I don't know why I tell a story, but maybe I'm trying to forgive myself for having.
Of course, I can understand. But I now understand why it's taken us this long to do this episode, because you've been wrestling with this moral quandary about whether to talk about it. No, I don't want to. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I prefer my default is always honesty. I always tell the truth, but it's also I don't want to tell people you should do that when you enter Pakistan, because you don't have to do this, and you'll understand, especially when I go to the other airports. And probably, meaning I've never actually done Karachi airport in a normal way, like on my own, without having anyone helping me. And it's probably very hard because, again, there's like in this immigration hall, it's chaos. It's absolute chaos. And I've asked many of my now friends in Karachi, and they all laugh when I talk about the airport, like, yeah, come on, Paul. It's a mess. We all know. We all fight. It's like for them. It's a given thing. But it's easier when you're there. Like it's easy if I criticize Zurich or Geneva airport. This is my home, so I feel more at ease criticizing them than if I'm trying to. I've been, as you know, Alex. I've been in the past very generous with some of the airports, especially in emerging countries. You remember my description of Beirut airport, which probably I was overly generous when I said it was nice. Because I will say, I still liked a lot Karachi airport, but that experience is something, the first thing you see in a country is your first arrival, and that will mark me forever. And I was in these, so that's why does it matter though? And I'll go to a few other bits after. What does it matter a lot? How long are we further? Yeah, an hour, so we're fine. I'm not going to do that too much longer. What does it matter? Because the day I left on that trip, and I left from Lahore. I'm going to go a bit later on why I don't know how I went to Lahore, because that's an interesting story. But when I leave Lahore airport, a bit more modern airport. I think it dates from the early 2000s, so it's more modern. Still a bit of a chaos. When I leave, I am at passport control to exit the country, and I give my passport. And there's only one stamp. There's no sticker, nothing in it, right? And the only assumption I had made, and by the way, they still remain assumptions to this day, is that because they moved on to an electronic system, they do not put a sticker on it. They just put a stamp of entry and then a stamp of exit. You know how they put your passport on the reading machine when you get out of basically every country? So the guy stamps my passport, puts on the machine, probably by habit, stamps first, put the machine, especially if he sees probably a Swiss passport, is going to be fine. They cannot find my records. Though, and I'm like, after 15 minutes staying in line, so I'm blocking the entire line of foreigners, because I was a single line, they say, follow me. Oh my God. And I'm like, have you seen the movie Argo? At that point, I'm like, I feel like I'm in Argo. I'm like, the plane is about to leave. I need to clear immigration. No, of course not. Really, guys, I'm not saying that because I love Pakistan. I'm going to tell the story afterwards about the country itself. But I'm wondering to this day if the way I enter the country, so it could be many things. It could be simply that the computers were not in sync between Karachi and Lahore because they're two different cities, and maybe their IT systems, and it's not talking. We know BA's IT systems are completely effed up. So maybe the immigrations are not linked. So they just couldn't find my. And I remember going into that room with a supervisor. That's very movie-like, and they were talking in Urdu. I can maybe barely understand 5 words of Urdu, so I'm like. And, I'm being just standing there like, what's going on? Should I? And the guy, they were really nice about it, right? The guy was like, yeah, probably a computer problem. Don't worry. Then he said, your name is too long. I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean your name is too long? And then the supervisor tries as well on the computer. That's how I could see, because then the computer is in front of me. I could see the little wheel going and not finding my records. He removes the passport and he looks at me, and does with a hand like go away now. And I'm like, okay. And I left and I went through security and I was in Argo, was successful.
Wow.
But I will always, until I came for the third time, which I'll come to in a few minutes, I was like, did I ever enter the country or did I ever leave the country?
So were you thinking about that when you went back? Yeah, I would have been too.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm going to have an issue at the border. But this time I said, you know what? The third time the charm, I'm not going to ask for any. So I was, this time, the third time, I was not going to Karachi. I was going only to Islamabad. That's the one I did in August. And so I had to go through the E visa again. The good thing, very good thing, is that when you enter the E visa again, you just log into your profile and everything is already there. So all my past travels.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. I just had to add the few I had done between May and August, which were 2 or 3. So I don't remember which ones, but there are 3. And that was it. So that's great. So that was done super quickly because all the information was still correct. So I just had to say the new dates of entry, and you just have to declare where you're going to stay. And that was it. And I got the process a bit. It seems to be manual on the other side because the first time I used that system, I got an email of confirmation within 12 hours that my visa was clear, which simply means that you can come to Pakistan and they will give you the visa because it's still a visa on arrival thing. You have a letter and a number that just says when this person arrives and lands in Pakistan, he's fine.
Okay.
Or she's fine. And the second time, after 12 hours, I'm like, I'm not getting anything. After 3 days, I have the High Commission of Pakistan, so responsible for visas here in London, sending me an email. Can you send us a CV? And I'm like, what? So, however, there were politicians and other important people at that last conference I went to, and I'm wondering if they were not doing background checks on me. Well, again, I don't know. I would never ask. But maybe because, there were some high-profile people attending that third conference, the one in August, and maybe that time that's why my visa approval was delayed, because it was not simply, you can come give a speech. It was like, we need to make sure that guy is not dangerous. Maybe I'm just making this up. It took me 2 weeks this time to get my visa cleared, whether 12 hours the first time. So it's still very kind of, I haven't made any pattern out of how fast you can get your.
I mean, do you think it's anything? It surely has to be linked to the fact that you, Jason, borned your way out of the country.
Maybe. I will, maybe. However, when I entered that time, and no one was waiting for me. I mean, really the proper way, let's say, that was done in. It was fine. I was on the system, but then I also saw what I probably should have happened the first time. But I'll get now to the comparison. I got that letter that I told you that you print out, that authorization letter.
Yep.
They gave it, they stamped it, and it gave it back to me. And when I exited, I had to show it, which I didn't have the first time, because remember, the guy just passed by everyone, said, stamp this passport, give me a passport, just fine, go. So I don't know. However, and that's important now, these 3 cities that I just mentioned, Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, are like 3 countries. They're totally different.
Yeah.
So Karachi, and I think it's important, and that's, again, Pakistani friend, please, friends, tell me if I'm totally wrong. That's my own assumptions, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm not explaining it well, but I think after now having been so many times, Karachi is a hustler city. Karachi is where probably more than 50-60% of the GDP is coming. It's a port city. It's huge. It's probably between the 4th and the 12th biggest city in the world, depending on how you count, but it's just 25 million people. I mean, it's hustling. It's big. It's chaos. It's messy. It's polluted. The roads are not taken care of. It's crazy. I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But it's
a lot of character.
It's a biggest chaos. One of the biggest chaos I've seen, worse probably, but one of the biggest chaos I've ever seen, which is why, by the way, I would not recommend going to Pakistan for the first time in Karachi if you've never done any emerging country before, because it's overwhelming, because it's crazy, it's chaotic. There's lots of people everywhere. The pollution you can feel. You can see the pollution. You can see like dust in the air at all times. It's really crazy, and it's because it's a hustler city. People go there to make a buck. It's like the number I just gave. I think 60% of the GP. Even London is only like 30%. New York is 20% of the GP of the US. So it's really like the entire economy revolves around that city. And you see everybody goes there and they're hustlers. They want to make money. They want to make a living. And that's really, so that not only the airport is the city. The fact that the airport is so chaotic is because the city is so chaotic. The philosophy of the airport that everybody, rushing and I want to be first is the city. You know what I mean? It
so it's
is
just
really
a natural extension of the fact.
Exactly.
Okay. That's interesting.
It's totally that. Lahore is also a very big city, 12 million people probably. So it's a very, very big city. But it's a quieter city. It's a city, some people say, of culture. It's also a city that was made from people that were farmers, so people that took care of their land. And the city itself, you can see that it's taken care of. It's greener. The street. The first time I was like, the hell, the streets are all super nice. It's like the people are more taking care of the surroundings, not only what is just in front of them, which is more Karachi.
That's interesting.
And don't take it bad, people in Karachi. My favorite, because I'm going to make my favorite city of the three is Karachi because I love it. But you can feel that it's more everybody for himself or herself, whereas Lahore is also, the way people speak, it's a bit slower. People walk slower. People are maybe more smiling. Not that they're not smiling in Karachi because it's super hospitable. But the point is, and the airport is the same. The airport is, of course, is newer. I've said 47 for Karachi, 2,000 probably something for Lahore. But when I arrive in Lahore airport, it's already more... there's no chaos the same. I've never entered internationally because I flew domestically to Lahore, but it's nicer. And then Islamabad, man. Islamabad, there's a joke in Pakistan that says, which I never understood until going there. Islamabad is 2 kilometers from Pakistan. And you're like, what do they mean? It's a planned city.
Oh,
it's
I
a city
didn't know
that
that.
only exists since the 60s. So there was nothing. And what they mean is like, it's Switzerland compared to the two others. Because first of all, it's planned. It's the government, I said, Karachi is business. Lahore is probably more the culture. And I'm exaggerating to make a point, obviously. I'm not saying there's no culture in Karachi, etc.
Sure.
And Islamabad is a government. So it's like all the big, the Supreme Court, everything. That's Islamabad. And the airport, man, is... also, it's brand new. It's like 7 years old, maybe, or something, just pre-pandemic. You arrive there and it's like, oh, I'm like in Dubai. Everything works. There's like a line that says, here's a foreigner for visa on arrival. Is business on arrival. Is like people with special visa. And people are queuing normally. So, and the city itself is super organized. The city is actually an Excel spreadsheet. My area where my hotel was G4, and next to it is G3, and over it, because it was built with these square, like in the US, like these chessboard cities, but they didn't even care calling each area with a name. They just call it G4, G3, G2, I7, I8. So it's really like you're looking at it as an Excel spreadsheet. It's super organized, and the airport is super organized. And that's why the joke 2 kilometers from Pakistan, because they say, it is Pakistan, because clearly you are, but it's not because it's way too organized to be in Pakistan.
So that's interesting, because if the airport experience was more organized, is that due to the newness and layout and design of the architecture, or just the vibe? Okay, that's interesting.
I think the city in general everything was way more organized. The traffic, it's a much smaller city, but there's almost no traffic compared to the others. Everything looks and feels way more organized. And this is not a shade on the two others when I say that. I'm not here making another preference as saying this should be the way. I'm just saying that it's so interesting how each airport is basically the reflection of the philosophy of each city. I remember people telling me when I went the first time in Karachi that how the North, everybody talks about the North. In 2020, Condé Nast Traveler, just before the pandemic, 2019, sorry, they said the number one destination you have to visit is Pakistan. And when you're in Karachi, it's very polluted. It's very brown because there's pollution everywhere. You can see on the buildings that some buildings must have been really grandiose at some point, but they're a bit not really taken care of. And whereas the more north you go, of course, the more greener it is because simply of the weather patterns, but also simply, I think, because people are more take care probably more of the land. And again, I'm going to maybe get hate mail from people from Karachi. I'm remembering you. Karachi is my favorite city. The more north you go, the more green it is and the more beautiful it is. And it's true that the north, and I've only stopped at Islamabad, if you go even further north, which are the mountains, apparently, and I've seen pictures, it's just wonderful, man. It looks like a mix of New Zealand and Switzerland and the Colorado. And you're like, what? It's impressive, right? It's really impressive. It's so the 3 airports. It's really something quite something. I fell in love with the 3. I would say maybe because of what I said earlier. I'm a Swiss, and I always were used to some organization. Maybe I love going to places that were a bit more chaotic. It's more my thing, maybe. So obviously I have a thing for Karachi. I find the people are just amazing. They're the most hospitable people I've ever seen in my life, man.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you and me know, we all have our maybe personal rankings. It's not even rankings. You feel, some, Eastern Europe, people I generally, at least the experience I've had, people, were taking care of me a bit more, of course, Southern Europe as well. Greece, I mean, I cannot judge because I'm Greek myself, or Lebanon has always been off the charts for me. The Middle East is why I love the Middle East, is because there's this maybe similar feeling of hospitality and I must say, I'm probably biased because as someone who has a lot of Greek in me, probably it's my kind of hospitality as well. I feel more at home because it feels closer to my culture. At first I thought, is that the ex-Ottoman Empire? Because every time I'm, of course, in Turkey or Lebanon, there's something similar about the food, about the music, about the way people behave that is probably closer to me. Of course, it's different. And the Ottoman Empire didn't go to Pakistan or parts of the Middle East, by the way, so it's not the entire true explanation. But I feel a connection that I might not feel even, I love Japan, as you know, but I don't have a connection, like a cultural connection. Sure. It's more like an affection than I have, right? Whereas I remember that I sat in a bus. It was like one of these buses they organized for us to do tours in Islamabad, a private bus. And the locals were starting, they had their phones. It was a long ride of 45 minutes. And they were playing music with their phones on Bluetooth on the speakers of the entire bus. And I was sat there, and that's when I realized, only in my 3rd trip, I was like, the music felt really like Greek music to a certain extent, this Desi music. And I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I love it so much, because it feels, of course, the food is amazing and you would love it. Of course, the people are off the charts amazing. But it's maybe there's something more that talks to me because of my culture. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just making this up in my head. I
don't know. I think, whatever affinity you experience with a place is your own, right? I don't think it needs justification at all, but it's fascinating to hear the provenance of that affinity.
Yeah. So maybe I'll stop talking about that. I'll go back a little bit to planes and then we'll move on. Because the second time I flew, so the trip that I did, which was the last time. So the trip I did to Islamabad, you remember, summer, chaos at Heathrow. I suffered through it because I kind of knew it. I booked a flight, Qatar Airways, and I'm like, there's only 50 minutes connection in Doha. And I'm like, with what's happening at Heathrow, I even go on these websites, that we both use when you have like this kind of on-time arrival or not type of, they tell you historical on-time departure, on-time for a certain route. And you could feel that starting the summer, this was getting delayed more and more. And I'm like, But at the same time, I didn't want to arrive to spend the night at Doha Airport. I said, I'm going to take my chance, so I can arrive, I think, at 1 a.m. And then at 1:50, I can take the second flight. And basically, because between of the time zones, I arrive like early, like middle of the night, but not too late. I can still sleep, and the next day, I'm there. And obviously, we were delayed for 95 minutes at Heathrow. So I knew that I missed, obviously, because there's no way to actually catch that in flight. I landed 5 minutes before the departure of my next flight. But Qatar, amazing, Qatar Airways. You go out to the plane as soon as you get out. Somebody's waiting for me with a boarding pass. Here's a new boarding pass for the next flight, which was the one in the morning, which meant I suddenly have 6 hours and something and some change to wait. So, it is what it is. I think I can still get something with EU 261 because the flight started in the UK and I arrive at destination with more than 7 hours delay. So let's see if I can get something. But anyway, the point is, Al Murkhan Lounge is amazing, the business lounge. At that moment, I thought, should I not move to? We talked that at the top of the show. Should I not move my loyalty to Qatar Airways, because I fly them a lot more these days than BA, and if I were the same status but on the program of Qatar Airways instead of being gold at BA, I would get access to that first class lounge, whereas as Emerald, gold at BA, Emerald, what is it, the highest, I forgot, you cannot enter the first class lounge. Not that it made any difference, the other one, but I was like, I have 6 hours, can I go? And they said, yeah, you can, but it's $120. I'm like, no. But
$120?
Yeah, it's like an upgrade. You can enter as an upgrade from your lounge because they want a limit. It's really, apparently it's huge. I've been once actually. Maybe I've been just visiting. It's huge and they want probably to limit the number of people. So it's really only for first class passengers on Qatar Airways or the highest level on their frequent flyer program. So it must be really empty. But I thought maybe I can, find a place to sleep there because I couldn't find a place to sleep in the lounge. They were, but they were not great. And I was like, I didn't want to pay the hotel. Anyway, this doesn't matter. I ended up. The funny thing is that I had to experience this for the second flight, that morning flight. It was a Dreamliner to Islamabad, and they also Q Suite. But honey, I shrunk the Q Suite. There's literally no room to build an actual Q Suite in a Dreamliner compared to a 350 or 777. So they call it a Q Suite, but it's basically what we see in American Airlines, BA, whatever. There's a door basically. But so don't get fooled, guys. If you are offered a Q Suite in a Dreamliner by Qatar Airways, this is not the one you expect. It's cool. I'm not here complaining about it. I'm just saying it's not the same. It's not that plush, big, square thing. It's a normal, herringbone. Yeah, it's okay. By the way, it's great. Two more things that's always funny and interesting. As you know, Pakistan is a dry country because it's Muslim. It's dry-ish because if you're not a Muslim, you're allowed obviously to drink. Interestingly though, because some like international hotels, for instance, I was at the Movenpick in Karachi the first time. I was at the Pearl Continental in Karachi and in Lahore, the same name. You always have like a bar, which is not called a bar. So usually it's like either a smoking lounge or a cigar lounge, or it's the pool bar. There's actual pool, and you can have a beer or a whiskey. The really interesting thing, and I'm not here saying that they produce their own beer. So I drank Pakistani lager, an IPA, and Pakistani whiskey, and we tried the last trip in Islamabad Pakistani vodka. It's very good. The beer is actually very nice.
So who makes it?
It's local back. Apparently, there's a big enough market. The country is like 220 million or 250 million. I don't know how big.
So there's enough.
Probably between the people who are not Muslims and the foreigners who live there and people that visit, there's a big enough market to justify having breweries, and so it's really cool. It's really nice. It's and the funny bit is that the first time I felt almost guilty. I'm like, oh my God, am I allowed to go there? Of course I am allowed, but then you don't really want to talk about it. It's hush. And then my friends are like, so Paul, did you go to the bar? And I'm like, what? Like, come on.
I know nothing. What are you talking about?
But it's interesting. It's in other words, it blew a lot. I still have not friends, because friends like you and close friends, we all on the same wavelength. But I still have people I know. Let's not acquaintances, people like acquaintances, whatever, that are raising an eyebrow when I said I go to Pakistan. Some use, like, some are almost like are negative, let's say, about the country, because of the preconceptions and stereotypes you have about the country, which, maybe I understand. There's no stories in the media about Pakistan. There's nothing, basically, right? Only when I started living in the UK had I started to learn a bit more about Pakistan, because suddenly you have Pakistani people living here. Actually, I have one of my neighbors here in the house, not very far from where I am now. He's Pakistani, and I talk to him very often, because I wasn't exposed. But there's no story. The only stories that a lot of people were getting through, especially 20 years ago when 9/11 was like, Bin Laden is there, and it's sad, because as we all know, all countries are more and more complex than the story we hear. And it's not only that I fell in love, I think it's one of the countries that needs to be visited more. I understand it's a lot of preconceptions that people have, but honestly, there's so much that I was, like, totally unaware, totally surprised in a very, very good way. I obviously, clearly you can feel I fell in love with the country, with the people, especially because of the hospitality. The food. The food.
I know,
the food.
I was so jealous.
Oh my God. I always overeat with that. There's a saying, if you don't gain 10 pounds when you're in Pakistan, you haven't done it properly, right? Because they eat all the time, and everything is amazing, especially the meats. I'm a very big meat guy. A friend of mine was she is a vegetarian, and she had a vegan, actually. She had a very good time as well. So it's not only meat, but the meat. Oh my God. It's wonderful. It's chaotic. So as I said earlier, I would maybe not recommend this country to someone who's never done an emerging country, because probably as a first emerging country, it's overwhelming. There are easier targets to go through, but someone like you'll be a fish.
I would love to go there.
Fish in the sea. Yeah, I mean it's absolutely wonderful. And obviously, it's really funny, because every single time I went there, every single time I took an Uber, it was always an Uber, and every single time the driver was Pakistani. They were like, "How are you going?" "I'm going to Karachi." "No way!" And they start, and we talk forever. And on the way back as well. I mean, I know I'm doing a cliche by saying a lot of Uber drivers are Pakistani. They're not only Pakistani, trust me. The Pakistanis they're also CEOs of big firms. But it's just funny, because it makes it even more a bit like, people will tell me, you need to go to this restaurant when you're in Karachi. "Oh, you can talk to my brother. Here's his number." I'm
That's
like, what?
so nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would like, and I will go back very, very quickly. Last bit, because that's probably the fun bit for Av Geeks. On my second trip, so I landed in Karachi, and I went to Lahore. I explained to you that Lahore was where I was blocked on the way out, the Argo style situation. How did I get there? I used PIA.
So you said you've been very sparse, even with me, on details on this one, because you wanted to save it.
Actually, so first, it's a bit dramatic, sadly. I was booked the year prior, so 2021. I booked and then I canceled. I was booked a day or two different from the PIA plane that crashed on landing in Karachi, 320. So obviously, not that I escaped it, because it was not that plane that was booked. Whatever, guys, don't make up stories in your mind. But when the second time I had to book, from this time was the other way around, because there's this conference, they change cities every year. They always do two, and they change the order. So when I had to choose how to go from Karachi to Lahore, a lot of people were telling me, it took Serene. Serene Air is kind of low cost, but it's very well rated. There's, again, it's a country of 220 million people, so there's still a lot of poverty. So it's not as if it's a market of 220 million people yet, but there's like a lot of opportunities for airlines. So there's like multiple airlines. But in my head, I was like, it's maybe the only time I will actually do PIA because I will never fly them internationally. Mm-hmm. Are they still banned, by the way, in some countries?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, and there's something about PIA, I told the story at the very end of one episode, and then I'll go to the flight, and then we'll stop because I think I've talked a lot already.
This is
the EK of Emirates stands for Emirates through Karachi. So in the early 80s, when the Dubai royal family said we want to launch an airline, who they reached out to launch the airline? To Pakistani International Airline, to PIA, because PIA back then was considered this amazing, very solid company, a bit like, not that I want to compare, but a bit like Olympic Airways back in the days, also in the 80s, was considered like superb airlines. And then, it all went awry. And really they're not what they used to. They're like only a shadow of themselves. But the PIA provided the training facilities to what became Emirates Airlines. They provided a cabin crew. They provided
I always
training material. And they even provided the first two planes. They were full wet lease. So the two first aircrafts that Emirates ever had in 84, 85 was their first flight, I think so, were from PIA, right? And so the first ever flight from Emirates was from Dubai to Karachi. That I think was in October 85. And it was EK's something. I don't remember. Well, no, it's a round number, but it was, and it was, royal people were inside from the royal family going to Karachi, and VIPs and whatever, and that's why they called Emirates through Karachi became EK and stayed that way. So to this day, EK, the fact that it's not called EM for Emirates or something like, is due to PIA and to Pakistan, and so there's also something probably a little bit I wanted to fly PIA because it has a story.
Yeah, one of those ancient, at least relatively, airlines.
Yeah. And so I decided to fly them. A lot of my friends, they were like, "Are you crazy?" But not in the way, "Are you crazy?" Because then I got it. They're like, "Not are you crazy?" Is going to crash. But "Are you crazy?" The service is and it's too pricey for what it is. But I said, "Guys, I want to do it." So I was like, okay, at least I'm going to do a business, right? I couldn't find any business. It was only something called executive economy, which actually is business. So what they do is because they don't have proper business seats, basically it's Europe. They took a normal seat and they put somebody, there's no one in the middle between the two. And they call that executive economy. And there's not a lot of service more than an economy. You're just in the front. So it was nice. I was in 1F, I think. Honestly, it was nice. The crew was super friendly, was helping every single person put their luggage in the overhead bins. They were, honestly, it was it's an hour and 30 minutes flight maybe or something. Very pleasant. It was on time. I got super lucky. I got, was it a 320? Well, it was a 320. It was, what do you call that? One of the ancient liveries, like they do.
I know what you mean.
A retro livery. Mm-hmm. So there was the old livery of PIA. Sadly, I couldn't really take a good picture.
I would imagine
the layout of the airport, but it was. The interior was nothing retro. The interior was a proper 320 and nothing to report on. And it was honestly, I landed it was a very early flight, like 8 a.m. And I landed in Lahore and I was like, it was more than okay. And actually there was one person that was going to the same conference with me. And I talked, he gave me a tip for Karachi. There's on domestic, that's going to be the last thing I'm going to describe the airports and then it's done. The domestic, there's a few lounges, but they don't give you lounge access even if you're an executive economy as PIA. But because he was traveling with me, he was a head of IT for the organization that invited me. He said, "Yeah, follow me." And we went to a lounge, which is a private lounge. It's owned by a bank, I think Alpha, but I'm not exactly sure. Alpha Bank, I think. And it's open to anyone who has an Amex card. So I just had to show the fact that I had an Amex card. I mean, I have one, and that was it. It was a super nice lounge, had a croissant and coffee, and they call you when you're supposed to go to the gate, and it was super. It was a very, very nice experience. I had a luggage in the hold, so when I arrived in Lahore, the only weird experience of all this, again, maybe because I was the only foreigner, I'm waiting. Of course, 1F, so I'm the first one to get out, and I'm waiting at the luggage belt for my luggage. And this security officer comes to me and says, "Can I see your passport?" Like, of course, I'm not gonna mess around. So he says my passport. He takes a picture with his phone of it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna ask why, and that was it. I was. Let go. I mean, let go. It didn't even block me. I took my luggage and I was up because, again, it was domestic. So yeah. I would say for Av geeks, the Karachi airport, old airport, chaotic on both ways. Man, when you try to get back to enter the airport, whether it's domestic or international, there are queues. And, like everybody's trying to go, but only if you're ticketed can you get into the terminal. It was one of these like double security thing. Print your itinerary to kind of prove, because you don't have a ticket yet, to prove that you can enter. And then it's chaos. It's absolute chaos. So be early at Karachi. The airport is very weird. Like, it's a huge hall with like chandeliers that are probably like 30 meters high. And there's like a big window in the middle and separates, because you can see basically the domestic on one side and the international on the other. On the international side, there's a few lounges. Again, everything is about tipping. It's crazy. I didn't have access to any. They look at you and say, oblige me. So oblige me basically means give me a tip and I'll make it work for you. That's a keyword I understood.
That's going to write that one down.
Yeah. And so they basically opened an entire floor for lunch for me just because I gave the guy the equivalent of $1. Because I had like 3 hours. I was way too early. I had like 3.5 hours. I was like, well, I'm going to do now. And there's no lounge access. And I was like, okay. And yeah, so again, I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. But then I had my entire lounge for me with a guy who every 5 minutes, do you want another coffee? Yeah, of course. Lahore. Lahore is similar. It's a bit more newer, but also when there's lounges, it's also a bit chaotic. The lounge is not very nice, so don't spend too much time there. But also, if you want, so for instance, these airports are non-smoking. Okay, that's the rule. If you want to smoke, you pay a guy something, and basically you can smoke. It's just crazy.
Really? I was not expecting you to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, it was. They're like, do you want to smoke? I'm like, no, but can you? Because I was curious, like, can you? And go, yeah. And then basically they get you like in the back room of the staff part of the lounge, and people are smoking there. And you're like, what is going on here? Yeah, it's very, very weird. And Islamabad airport is brand new. So this is built, I think, designed by maybe British company,
sure it was.
Architects. Very nice, very airy, and windows and super views everywhere. So that's a very, very, very. The old airport was a capacity, and it's so it was only closed again maybe 6 years ago, and they opened 6 years ago. This one maybe 2017, maybe, or something like that. Really, 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 really nice. I was again too early. But everything is so smooth at this one compared to the other where it's chaos, and you're like, I'm not going to make the thing, because it's like the queues and you have, again, these queues in Karachi and Lahore, security officers looking at me and making me a sign, do you want to overtake everyone? Which is code for...
Pay me.
I didn't, because I wasn't so early. So anyway, I'm like, whatever, I'm going to wait in the queue. But one piece of advice, push a little bit when in the queue. Otherwise, people overtake. But not in Islamabad. Everybody is so orderly. It's just different. And, even when PIA, when I landed in Lahore... You know how, even in Europe, as soon as the plane arrives at the gate, people are all standing up, like ready to go, and it's like a race, and you're like, why? The door is not even open, and your people kind of stand up. Then, you hear the ding.
And then, yeah.
Nobody.
Really?
I was the only one. And I'm like, am I doing a mistake? 1F, so I stand up, I look back, and like, why is everybody? And then I got it, because they just... we didn't need to, so because it was orderly. Anyway, so it's a country of contrast for airports
Very refreshing.
as well. If you like views, there are more than 30 abandoned aircrafts on Karachi grounds. Lots of PIAs and a few others, including some cargo from airlines I'd never heard about. But the PIA one, like you have old ones. I've heard that the foreign ones are like a bit the story you told me about the fines in, Valencia?
Yeah.
Where was it? They are aircraft with they are in custody bags.
Yeah.
So they just they staying there. But it's great for pictures. We can take lots of nice pictures. And in Doha, same. You have Dreamliners and 350s next to runways that are still there, laying around. And
I love that.
to finish off, I was super happy because last flight with Qatar, the same, I had also a retro livery, so the old
I didn't
Qatar
know they
livery.
had one.
Yes, it's like this kind of, the same color the Qatar use, like this kind of violet mauve, yeah. So it's like a big line, feels like from the 70s. Super
I've
cool.
never seen one.
Again, inside, it's almost kind of you wish they made something inside as well, but good enough. I mean, so I had like 2 retro liveries, so the PIA one, and so I felt very
cool.
There you go.
Man, what an adventure!
There you go. I spoke forever.
Oh no,
I'm so sorry.
I've been looking forward to this for so long. You've inspired me.
Friends from Pakistan, if I said something that is completely out of line or wrong, just correct us. I'm sure I'm gonna get like thousands. And I want to make a shout out, man. Where is he? I've written this. At Tabrik on Twitter, TABRIQ. He wrote us in end of 2018 on Twitter. I, Paul, and Alex couldn't resist writing you after hearing that you may be doing an episode on Karachi Airport. I live here, and I am a total AV geek, so please do let me know if I can be of any help to you. So, Tabrik, it took me, 4 years. Here you go. I've done an episode on Karachi.
That's amazing. What a legend.
So Tabrik, please, if you hear this, maybe he's not, because maybe he dropped and stopped listening, but if you're still a listener and you have anything to add, please hit us up on Twitter, and I'd be very happy to correct the record if I made.
That's cool. Well, yeah, 4 years is better than late than never.
Late than never. Maybe because we have a few more minutes. I mean, one of the weird thing that, first of all, I could say so much more about Pakistan, but I've said already I spent more than an hour talking about it. I may add some stuff if people really want to, but I think that's good enough for the moment. Just don't do plane spotting. Don't. It's like Beirut, man, or maybe, I don't know if it was the case in Medellin for you. Do not take pictures of official buildings. You're going to be in big trouble.
I was wondering that when you were talking about taking pictures.
Yeah, no, in these countries, don't be silly. And a lot of stuff might not look military, but around airports, you often have a military base, like in Karachi. On the other side, I think, is it Karachi or Lahore? Yeah, you have a little military base. So don't take pictures. You don't want to be arrested. I took a picture in the city once of a building, not knowing it was an official building. And somebody came to me, super cool, the soldier. He even wanted to invite me for food afterwards. I was like, what? Oh. So they are very nice. But they said, you cannot. I said, oh, sorry, I didn't. So just pay attention to that. Don't do stupid things. It's the case in all the countries. I mean, we talked about Lebanon, you experienced, so don't be stupid. Anyway, Queen Elizabeth II passed. Now it's been 2 weeks. I mean, of course, it's sad, but because we are an aviation show, there were some quirky stories, especially the announcements in flights, right?
Yeah, some of those that popped up on social media were touching. There's probably the most notable one was the BA flight with the flight attendant openly weeping as the captain put together this impromptu, almost eulogy. It was was beautiful. I think that's the only way to describe it. But there were a lot of those, and you and I both remarked, I think, in a chat that how surreal that must have been to hear that announcement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a few also I saw we exchanged about it, a few pictures of the NOTAMs, and so you had I don't think pilots were required to do so, to do the announcements, but it was all BA pilots, and I've seen also from EasyJet, they received this, the onboard messaging thing. They receive and I have one from BA. It says here, "Attention, all aircrafts, to be read at your discretion." And then there's sentences, "It is with great sadness that we have learned that of the passing of Her Majesty the Queen. Our thoughts are with the royal family at this very difficult time." So it was at your discretion. The pilot you mentioned, the story we heard, he went further, and I'm sure there were other aircrafts landing or departing when that was announced. There was a very similar message on EasyJet's messaging system. But the weirdest for me was it Gatwick who decided to do like a 1 minute silence on all comms? For, I don't know when it was exactly, but they said no one communicates on all our frequencies.
They did it was almost like a METAR, wasn't it? Like part of the weather and operational announcements that come out.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you have to think, because everything else was so well planned and for decades probably, that this was.
Yeah.
And airlines thought, we should probably have a task force looking at this in like 1996. And then finally they're like, well, we've already all got this written. Somebody go and dust off the folder and send out the NOTAM and invoke whatever processes we have developed. That's my hunch, I would hope. It's almost sort of, not disaster planning, but disaster planning. But yeah, it was, I did wonder what it would have been like to be on a flight and how they would tell you and then.
Were you affected, by the way, because you flew the day before, because there were like so many VIPs and, notables and politicians and head of states who came on the Sunday.
Some friends flew.
And Saturday, yeah.
They fly on Sunday or Monday from London to San Francisco, and I can't remember. I haven't actually asked them, but I'm sure that it was. They're not frequent flyers through Heathrow. I'm doing it once a year, so they wouldn't have noticed a difference. But I'm very sure that you and I, or anybody else that flies through Heathrow reasonably regularly, would have noticed a difference.
They also canceled. I think Heathrow also canceled. This is not because of the head of states, but Heathrow also canceled some flights because they decided not to have any planes flying overhead over London during the procession, the actual funeral, and then I think they went with a coffin to Windsor. So I think that disrupted their operation to the point, I think they canceled, 15% of the flights at the day of the funeral, something like that. I'm not sure about the numbers, but they did actually, I remember I was watching, actually. They gave us a bank holiday, so I had the BBC on in the background. And, I can hear the flights from where I live. And probably 5 minutes before, I could see that they stopped flying. And it was not, usually they switch at 3 p.m. It was nothing to do with 3 p.m. And then there was nothing, no single flight for almost the rest of the day. And they restarted the evening. So probably that disrupted also a bit on the Monday. But quite extraordinary that all this would happen, actually. Yeah,
it was. I wasn't here for the funeral or any of that bit, but the rest of it was a truly monumental thing to witness, at least on the periphery.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely was. It's I mean,
and then of course her coffin flying down from Aberdeen. No, Edinburgh in the end, I suppose it would have been, was the most tracked flight in Flight Radar 24's history by, I think, orders of magnitude.
That was a Hercules or something?
I think it was a C-17, although maybe I'm making that up.
That's crazy when you think about it, actually.
Yeah, it was a C-17. an RAF C-17, and it was 5 million people.
God, it's. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't track that one, but I didn't know that. Wow, it's quite a story. I think it's one of these global stories. So probably people were. I mean, it was still a shock. I mean, that, I'm not. I was not born here, but I think it's been said so many times. I'm not going to add anything to saying that, but I think it's the only monarch I knew in my time. Sure. We knew it. Probably was still kind of wow. Like. Plus, it's since the time of turmoil. Like, now God, not another thing. I mean, I've had enough of already emotions by Federer.
Oh, I know. I did think of you when that came out.
Yeah, well, that's he was our monarch in Switzerland, I guess. So maybe because you are better informed than me. I've heard that she didn't. So the Queen, we're not talking about Federer here. She didn't have a passport.
Yeah, I've heard that.
She doesn't need a passport
because you're like, my face is on the money. Let me in.
Well, exactly, right? And because she flew a lot, I read something. She went to like nearly 200 countries, which obviously which is incredible. There was a picture floating around when she passed, and she's seen leaving a Concorde in Kuwait. So she even flew a Concorde, obviously, but also a Concorde in places that we're not really flying, because usually you associate Concorde with New York or London, obviously. So, I mean, she must have seen quite a lot of aircrafts as well. There must have been, and obviously, I mean, people know that, but Terminal 2 in London at Heathrow is named after her. It's called the Queen Terminal. She opened it in, when was it? 2000.
Yeah, something 12?
Like that. I don't want to say.
I can't remember either.
Exactly. We're living here. We forgot about it. Obviously, okay, that's a joke, guys. But obviously, the French. So I just said earlier. So Heathrow and other airports, they reduced the number of flights in the UK on the Monday of her funeral. And the French, they couldn't let that happened, so they went on strike, and 50% of their flights were cancelled that same Monday. So they would say, "Yeah, look at us, we are actually cancelling more for the Queen than you do because we're striking." No, I'm joking. I wanna, because we're gonna wrap up soon. I wanna say hi to Vinod and Geoff. They're from the podcast Seat 1A, but I think it's Fly Seat 1A on Twitter. I might say, maybe I'm wrong, guys. I'm sorry. So Seat 1A, it's a cool podcast about aviation. We talked about them in the past. The reason I mentioned them is because they came both to London, and I saw them both on separate occasions. Cool. Each of them in London. It was really nice to talk, obviously, about aviation. I mean, Geoff was on some kind of world trip after he was going to Germany, and from Germany was going to, I think, South Africa, and then South Africa to Botswana, and he was flying so many different airlines. So he's probably going to talk about this in one of his shows. It must be very fascinating. And Vinod was here. So Vinod, man, if you've never listened to that podcast, Vinod works for the broadcasting company of the Olympics. So he went in Japan during the Olympics and in China during the Olympics. And he has, and we spent 3 hours having a beer discussing that, the most incredible stories about the number of tests and what he had to go through to enter these countries, and being in bubbles, and it's insane. And he discussed that. I think they have one episode when they discuss that a bit. It's insane, man. It feels like science fiction nowadays to talk about this, but must have been quite quite something to be. So, are you looking to go to Japan yourself?
I mean, I've looked at the prices lately, and I think they're too prohibitive right now. But I think maybe the spring.
Yeah. Maybe it is. Yeah, I'm on the same inkling. I'm not sure. I mean, I know myself. I will have to keep fighting myself not to book for tomorrow, but because obviously I want to go. I mean, not tomorrow. The 20th of September. It's not even open yet. I'll be just
sitting there.
Refused. I'll be staying at Haneda for 2 weeks in front of the booth.
Yeah.
So when it opens, I'll be the first one to arrive.
Visa.
I need to say one more thing about Qatar Airways for somebody. It's because it's weird. You know how all the airlines kind of reduced what they've done during the pandemic, either their service, their fleet, everything. Qatar Airways, for some reason, decided to build a second lounge in T4. So you have 2 lounges at T4 now. 2. It's very confusing when you go there. So the second time, of course, it was not a T5 anymore. They had moved back to T4. And it was like, oh, they have a very nice lounge. And I arrive and I see 2 entrances. And I'm like, this is probably the same. And I enter the first one because I didn't know, I thought it was the same. And they said, no, this is not the correct one. And in my head, I'm like, is it only for first class? No, actually, they have one, the old one, you can enter as Emirates, so as One World, flying One World, and if you're in business class, so if you're of course, if you're in first class in any airline from One World, if you're in business class, so BA Silver, BA Gold, you can enter, and you can bring a guest. And then next door, they build a brand new Qatar only, so only for Qatar people flying to Qatar Airways, only business and first, obviously. You cannot bring a guest there, and it's really, really
have
nice.
Enough
and you're like, guys,
movement to sustain that. Well, clearly they do.
I mean, first of all, they have enough money, probably. You know what? I don't know how it works for lounges. Maybe one day we should probably invite someone who deals with lounges. Probably there's like not commissions, but a system of like if you as a BA flying on BA today, I mean, you're not flying out of BA at T4. I don't know who else would be from T4. Finnair? Finnair flies T4 or T2 now?
I can't keep up. There's been like musical terminals lately.
Exactly. But I guess, maybe they get something if it's somebody else's.
I see. Yeah, there's probably some per passenger.
I mean, they're not huge. You know how T4 is not that big, so they're not like huge lounges. They're not like the size of some of these lounges we see elsewhere in the world. But yeah, so note that the second one when you get there is the one for Qatar. If you're flying Qatar, it's the newest one. It's super nice. There's like a little lounge and a bar and a wine place and you're like, what? I mean, it's a lounge, but it's nice. So yeah, and let's finish with that. We said earlier, I don't know about you. Do you feel as excited about products that you used to, or not? As in,
that's waned massively.
Right? I have to say, it's horrible to say that on a podcast of aviation, but I don't. Like I flew. It was amazing to be on the Q suite. Like for 2 big flights in a row into Pakistan, but. I mean, I'm very happy, and I'm going to do that again because why not? But the veneer fell off somehow. I was like, yeah, it's cool, but not like, wow. No, I think it's horrible.
I don't think you're alone there.
I don't know how to feel. Like even like my next flight is with Emirates, and I'm looking forward. Next flight, but I don't have that sense of anticipation that I used to have. It's horrible to say that when I hurt.
No, I'm with you, and I think it's a lot to do with just this general fatigue of the process has taken the sheen off the actual sheen.
Ah, man. Guys, stick with us. We promise you will.
Flying is terrible. Everybody is, This is going to become a wine podcast.
Look at about fly. So we should do that, actually. So, guys, by the way, take a look at, I said it at the start, Alex's attaché on how does he pack. Do you agree? Or I don't fully agree, but it's because I have different habits, probably. But it was but it's fun. It's a short but fun little episode. And then next flight, so you understood I fly Emirates. I'm not going to tell you because it's going to be super. I don't even know why I do that.
I like it. No, I think it's a good idea. Tune in next week.
It's going to be a different destination we've never done. I've certainly never done. So it's going to be cool. Maybe the next episode will be about it. But I know that you'll be also you're leaving actually tomorrow, which is why we're doing this afternoon. Are you going by train or by
train? Are you kidding?
Plane.
I'm going to Paris, and there's no way that I would go anywhere other way. Of course, I'm going to get stuck in the tunnel now. So having said that,
so you're probably going to enjoy that. I hope you're staying for a night at least to go some.
Yep, staying for a few nights.
A few nights.
Make a
nice
end of it.
Is she coming with you?
With me. We're
Has she ever been to
She
Paris?
was there a week ago. So
Oh.
what a life.
So I thought it would be very romantic. You'll make her discover Paris.
Well, it's the first time we've been together, so it'll be good to
That is going to be romantic. So are you going to go to Disneyland?
of course.
Man, I enjoy that.
So great to
thank
finally
you
hear
for
that
bearing with my very, very long, without notes description of my travels. Next time is going to be besides Paris,
Nothing imminent, no.
within the. Yeah, it's also the thing. It's very slower than used. So Mathieu, who was saying that, Paul, you don't talk about your flights. So first of all, I've done it now, and the others that I've required asked me about this, I've done it. So please stop harassing me about these Pakistan trips. Oh, now I'm sure they're going to say you didn't talk enough about Qatar Airways. Yeah, because I already talked like an hour and 20 minutes. That's enough. The difference is that in 2018 and 2019, we couldn't keep up with all the flights we were doing to do episodes. I mean, I have so many flights in airports. I have a list because every time Alex was going to an airport, I was noting it down. And I was noting, of course, mine's down. And I have a huge list of airports that we're hitting, but we never had the opportunity to do on the podcast because we're flying. Now it's the opposite because we're flying more in it's a post-pandemic world crisis, whatever, but it's... so maybe we should do a little bit of reminiscence at some point or something. I mean,
I like that idea.
Anyway, I'm going to play the end intro, unless there's something else you want to say, because I've talked a lot. So next time, actually, you know what? Maybe next time it's not going to be again me. It's going to be him. I'm going to put you on the spot to imagine after a travel or something. Where is the button for the end credit? Here it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What's this is the busy season for speaking, so you never know what's going to pop up in the last minute.
Yeah, I have a few speaking online, which is not like next week I'm doing something in Manila online. I'm like, really? I would have preferred going to Manila.
I've got one in Colombia online. Like, I can come if you really want me to.
Exactly. I'm ready. But that's the other thing, probably. Many friends of mine are telling me that corporates are still not flying. And by the way, they're not even flying business class.
This is true.
They're saying economy, so it's another conundrum for the airlines here.
This is very true.
I don't know, man. Guys, it's not a downer. Please fly. Give us feedback on your flights. Tell us how amazing it is. Like, prep us up because we probably... I don't know why we finish on these notes. Anyway, Alex, thank you.
Safe travels,
bye, guys. Happy flying.